So President Sands, we are 2 weeks into the new academic year, and this class is significant.
Well, I think the sesquicentennial class is a reason to celebrate. First of all, it's a reason to think about the 150-year history of Virginia Tech and the evolution of our land-grant mission. But it's also an opportunity, as you pointed out, to reflect on where this class is headed and to really use it as a kind of a barometer for the changes that are happening around the world and the kinds of changes that we have to prepare our students for going forward. And when I look at the 30,000, 35,000 students that wander around Virginia Tech during the day or change classes or they're in the laboratories and serving as research assistants and across the board, that is in the back of my mind all the time is what are we preparing them for, and are we preparing them in the right way? And I think it's a great opportunity to reflect on that.
In terms of preparing them, what are the skills today that are so important for Virginia Tech students to learn?
Yeah, I think every student has to have depth in a discipline. You need to be able to bring something to the table. And a lot of our students crave having depth in multiple disciplines. And sometimes those disciplines are very disparate. They're not related to each other, obviously. But that will continue going forward. But I think that there are some skills and approaches that are going to be needed for this generation going forward that were always important but are even more important in the world we're entering. For example, the ability to work in a team on a topic that is much more complex than any individual could handle. And that requires being able to communicate with people that have different disciplinary expertise, different lived experience, and to do that in kind of a fluid, competent way so that you can incorporate that kind of thinking into a solution or into a vision or whatever it may be that you're working on at the time.
Virginia Tech has a history of commitment to research. Can you share the importance and the impact of research?
Research has an impact across many dimensions. One of the things that I used to think of as research, back when I was a kid, was the discovery and the curiosity-based research that we do at universities like Virginia Tech. And that will forever be important because it's part of the human experience. You ask questions, you try to get the answer. And Virginia Tech is well positioned for that. But we're also really well positioned for what I would call the opportunistic application-driven research. And that's something that we're really, really strong in historically and will be going forward. And this is a situation where you have a problem you're trying to solve, but you're flexible enough in trying to solve it that you recognize when you have a discovery that is going to change the whole framing of that problem. I mean, it's one thing to have a problem that you try to solve and you just stay on that, but if you are aware enough and your knowledge is deep enough and you're at the forefront of that field, our researchers are able to recognize when there's a breakthrough and really say, okay, well then let's go off in that direction. And that's something that I think is really right in the wheelhouse of Virginia Tech. The other part that I think is so important, and we're working hard on this, is a transdisciplinary approach to research. You always have to have depth in the discipline. You have to be able to work across adjacent disciplines, as interdisciplinary research. But the future, I think, is in pulling all that together in a transdisciplinary framework that allows you to take on the problems that have policy implications, that have implications for the human experience, as well as the technology, the science, the business aspects. Think of a problem right now that's worth solving. A lot of the only way you're going to really do that is to pull that kind of expertise together. And we have it at Virginia Tech because we're a comprehensive university, but I think the other really important orientation that we've got is the ability to bring in partners, because no institution going forward can take on some of these problems and some of these challenges without partners. You can't have it all. And what we're trying to do with our destination areas, with the institutes, and with our research enterprise as a whole is position ourselves so that we are a preferred partner, so that we can bring in the talent that we need to augment what we've got and really take on these grand challenges.
Sure.
Yeah, I think collaboration is the key. We need to be able to work with partners, and some of those partners are going to be other academic enterprises. Some of them are going to be in the commercial side, government agencies, non-governmental organizations. You go down the list, there are partners both in the U.S. and outside that you really need to bring in when you're taking on a big problem. And we've tried to lead by example in the Commonwealth to show that Virginia Tech is an authentic partner, that we're really committed to this. Probably our deepest partnership at the moment is with Carillion Clinic. And we've had a 10-year experience with them in Roanoke, and we're looking forward to the next decade and growing rapidly in that area. But if you think about what it took and to come to that position where you can have a partnership across sectors, we're higher ed, they're healthcare. Those two don't often meet, and the opportunity to pull together really is based on trust and alignment. You have to have some serious conversations to engage a partner like that. You can't just assume that it's going to stick together. You have to work at it constantly. It's like a relationship between two people. You can't take it for granted. If you look at the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, I think our experience with Carillion Clinic, and there are many other examples where we've been a trusted partner, and we've been, I think, authentic in that. It put us in a position with this essentially a cyber moonshot that the state envisioned doing, that they asked us to take the lead on that. And that means not Virginia Tech not taking the whole thing and running with it, but really bringing in all of our partners. We've got now, I think, with the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, something like 75 people involved in various working groups to help us shape the blueprint that we're going to present by December 1st to the Virginia Research Investment Committee. And they're from all of our academic institutions, but also from industry, from the startup community, entrepreneurs, VCs, and non-governmental organizations, the whole spectrum. And we're all getting around the table and working through what this could look like, because it will put, if we're successful, it will put Virginia in the league globally in this nexus of data security and autonomy, with a focus on cybersecurity, but its connections to machine learning, its connections to the Internet of Things, where there's a huge opportunity space for Virginia.
I want to talk to you about something that we'll hear you talking a lot about in the coming days, and that's an idea that you call collective autonomy. And I think an example of that I think most of us can relate to is using our GPSs. We use them to get from one place to another. It tells us if there's an accident ahead, and it will reroute us. Talk about the significance of that and the implications of collective autonomy.
This idea that there's a emergence of human cyber networks that are really changing the way we live. It's actually changing the way we make decisions as humans. The fact that we've got machines and networks of machines out there that are interfacing with not only individuals, but collectively with other human populations. And the example you used is a great one because everybody can relate to it. Almost everybody now uses GPS to navigate. And if you think about what's actually happening there, you don't feel that when you're doing it. You get this advice from this device that says you should go this way. Right. We know you want to go there, but this is the way you should go. Oh, there's been a change. Well, where does that data come from? And it comes from other humans in the network, and other devices that are sending information into a collective, essentially smart system that is learning as you go and then feeding you back advice. And if you think about how that changes your life, in that case it saves you time and it saves you effort. You don't have to worry about reading a map. It's just a fantastic addition that we've taken for granted now. But what happens when it goes wrong? There are potential downsides, and there are potential technology downsides and security downsides, but this convergence of data, security, and autonomy is with us, I think, for the foreseeable future. This is going to be, I think, the major technological change of our time. But if you think carefully about who has access to it, it's not everybody. It's people who are in urban environments. Typically, younger generations have more access to this. And if you look at and wealthier people have access to these technologies. And I think one of the concerns that we all have is that the disparities will grow as a result of the technological enabling that collective autonomy and these essentially human cyber networks will have on us going forward. The expectations are changing, and what if some people have access to this and others do not? And it creates a divide. And I also think it creates a problem with our social systems, our legal system, financial systems, all of those also become either they become essentially unmoored from the reality. You know, they're based on a lifestyle that we had 10 years ago or 30 years ago or 50 years ago. And we have to rethink all that. I think we essentially have to rethink society as a whole as a result of these human cyber networks and collective autonomy. And that's a daunting task that I think Virginia Tech is really well prepared to address.
I was going to say Virginia Tech is already adapting to meet some of these challenges, especially in terms of claiming its role in research and in developing information and machines. Can you talk about that a little?
Well, we're in a really good position to address a lot of these challenges. The fact that they're happening so fast is daunting, even though I think we're well prepared, well positioned. But if you look at our leadership in unmanned aerial systems and drone technology, we have the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership. We have essentially the ability to look at these issues and integrating unmanned aerial systems with the essentially the airspace that we've got that's occupied commercially. We've got an opportunity to take leadership there. I think we already are. A lot of the new, really the new demonstrations, the first times, have been done in collaboration with Virginia Tech. Of course, we had the famous popsicle delivery to Jack, a 2-year-old in Montgomery County, that caught a lot of attention, and we laugh about that and we think it's kind of cute. But the reality is it represents the first time that we've had a commercial delivery over a populated area, and I think that is the beginning of a frontier going forward. What's interesting about it is not the technology, it's the public policy piece of that is really new. The technology part is pretty well developed. The problem is more, how do we relate to this? How is this accepted by the population? How do we build regulations around it? How do we ensure that it moves forward at a pace that really doesn't put the U.S. behind, that allows us to move ahead in these technologies, but still do it in a safe way and in a way that is secure? And I think Virginia Tech is really well positioned for that. If you look at our Virginia Tech Transportation Institute, another example where essentially all of the regulations in the U.S. associated with connected and autonomous vehicles flow through VTTI for analysis and for testing, because we have the experts in human factors there. Again, we have the technology piece, but we also have experts in policy and regulation and the way humans interact, both from a policy standpoint, but also from a dynamic human-machine interface standpoint. So I think all those things point to Virginia Tech being in a leadership role going forward. We have the opportunity, we just have to step into it.
And let's just end with the recommendation for our students. I think that some might want to know what you would recommend for our incoming freshmen, something to see, something to do while they're here at Blacksburg.
Well, I think it goes, the Hokie bucket list is a lot of fun, and I'm on it. So I get to experience many opportunities to meet students, so I appreciate that. But I do think that what Virginia Tech offers is essentially a playground for curiosity. In other words, if you're a student who's coming to Virginia Tech, you should take advantage of everything that we've got to offer. And that means if you're an introvert like I am, it means being forceful about being an extrovert for part of your time here. In other words, don't think of this as an experience that is just about you. It's about being part of a community that is very strong. Every survey we do, every analysis shows that one of the strengths of Virginia Tech is, or the fundamental strength is the prosum, that I may serve, which then creates, I think, a very strong community.
Thank you. I appreciate you talking with us.
Well, thanks, Dawn. I've enjoyed it.